Good morning, welcome to Headline Focus here live on Core Politics with me, Rob Double. It is Thursday the 19th of July 2018. Let's have a look at what's making the political news. To start off with, Boris Johnson is in the papers again. This time over his resignation speech, which he gave. Now, he obviously resigned as Foreign Secretary over Brexit, and he did not hold back in giving his opinions yesterday in the Commons as to why he thought the Brexit deal was not a success. The key line, which is coming through in all the papers, or most of the reports that are covering this, is it's not too late to save Brexit. And as you can see as well in the graphics we've got here, that's on the front pages of many articles as well. Now, he accused Theresa May, the Prime Minister, of dithering over the UK strategy on Brexit and saying that overall the whole approach is a needless fog of self-doubt and the Chequers plan would see the UK in a miserable limbo. So just that's the extent of which he feels strongly about the issue. And indeed, it shows why he concluded that he had to resign. He had to go from government as he couldn't support the government's position and what they were proposing. Now, in terms of Ireland in particular, because Ireland is still remaining a key issue, and we'll come on to that in a second, he goes on to say that no one wants a hard border, but there certainly can be different rules north and south of the border to reflect the fact that there are two different jurisdictions. Now, despite the fact the Chequers agreement was totally panned by Boris Johnson in his resignation speech, effectively the top line, the rough line was there's no ambition. There lacks complete ambition in terms of what Brexit could be, and the Chequers white paper is just too minimal in what it's hoping to achieve from the EU in terms of the negotiations. But he did praise the Prime Minister personally herself, saying, praise her for her courage and resilience she's shown whilst being Prime Minister and leading through the Brexit process. Reports are coming through this morning that there were actually two speeches prepared by Boris Johnson, one of them being a little bit more brutal than the other, and the reports are that he actually went for the kinder of the two options. That in itself saying something that maybe Boris Johnson is not necessarily looking to wield the knife on Theresa May at the moment, or whether he's interested at the moment in running for the leadership. Obviously, he's ambitious to be leader of the Conservative Party and to be Prime Minister. But there's now a big question mark over, does he have enough support? And also, is he really up for it at the moment, or is he biding his time when he feels that there's a more likely chance of him being able to take the top job? Certainly someone to watch in the next few days, and probably actually leading all the way through the Brexit process. Now he's back on the back benches. But let's talk about someone, if we look at the next story, who is now at the forefront of the Brexit negotiations. Dominic Raab, the new Brexit Secretary, took over from David Davis when he resigned, as well as a result of not agreeing to the Chequers white paper agreement. He heads to Brussels today. He's actually in the Commons early morning for taking some questions, but he then heads over to Brussels for his first meeting as Brexit Secretary with the EU's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier. Main discussion points will be that, of course, progress on the withdrawal agreement, but also the Chequers white paper, which was published recently by the UK government and is the most comprehensive document in terms of outlining the details of what the UK thinks on a very practical level what can happen and what can be the future relationship with the EU. And it goes into quite good details in terms of the mechanisms and the processes in place in terms of the relationship as well. It's the real meat of when the negotiations are going to be going next. This, though, as you can see, has been overshadowed to some extent by the fact the European Commission has instructed all the EU member states to prepare for the possibility of a no deal. That indicating that whilst the EU might to some extent be wanting to show, yes, we are preparing for a no deal as well. We are prepared for it to be a no deal if the negotiations go nowhere, the UK doesn't concede on some of our red lines. At the same time, it's a reality that Theresa May and the government in the UK has got such a wafer-thin support in the Commons over Brexit that there had been a number of concessions and restrictions placed on the EU, placed on the government in terms of the tariffs, in terms of the customs union, that in terms of going into the negotiations, there are some very firm things Theresa May cannot concede on, or rather Dominic Raab cannot concede on. And that means that in terms of the possibility of a no deal, if no compromise can be found, a no deal scenario could be seen as more likely. And now this is obviously a big news, an important day for Dominic Raab. However, Is he really the one in charge of the Brexit negotiations now? What the reports are is that Ollie Robbins, who is the behind-the-scenes civil servant and personal advisor to the Prime Minister on Europe, really is now the chief negotiator for the UK. Dominic Raab, really just a front-of-house position with doing the set-piece events. There's no press conference as well, which I think also speaks a lot as to what Dominic Raab's position is going to be in terms of the Brexit negotiations. But definitely one to watch out for again later on today. Finally, Ireland has issued a warning, or rather Leo Varadkar, the Taoiseach, or Irish Prime Minister, has issued a warning saying he'd be prepared to block British-born aircraft from flying over Irish airspace if the EU leaves Europe, if UK leaves Europe without a deal. Now, this is one of the many warnings from across the Irish Sea in the island of Ireland, particularly relating to Brexit. It's still not been resolved. There is still no key agreement to Ireland currently in the Brexit negotiations. It's a real sticking point for everyone involved in the process. And obviously, Leo Varadkar, very aware of the fact that he needs to protect Ireland and Ireland's interest in the negotiations, because it's going to be a hugely unstable time, particularly for the Irish economy, when Brexit actually does happen. Let's have a look at what he's quoted as saying, though. If they want their planes to fly over the skies, they would need to take that into account. And you can't take back your waters and then expect to take back other people's sky. Now, this has been factually disputed by many journalists and obviously Brexiteer politicians as well. And the reality is that a lot of Irish flights, particularly Irish flights going to Europe, fly over the UK. And so in terms of having a mutually beneficial system of aviation going forwards, it's probably not the best idea to start saying that the UK planes might not possibly be able to fly over Irish skies. One of the key things, though, in terms of Ireland, Theresa May is joining Northern Ireland Secretary Karen Bradley to meet businesses and hear views of businesses in the Ireland and Northern Irish border today. It's a two-day trip. It's going to be showing Irish residents that a border which is maintained can be achieved post-Brexit. And also it's to remind, reports are saying it's to remind Brexiters back in the UK that Ireland, or the importance of a frictionless border in Ireland is essential in these Brexit negotiations, and indeed a government red line. There are reports as well, just to let you know, that the Prime Minister will be embarking on a tour of Britain this summer to try and get people around to the idea of the Chequers Agreement. And this is what she's going to be doing in the next few months while Parliament is on recess, basically campaigning for her Chequers agreement to be agreed by everyone. That's something that was going to be a huge effort from her, and indeed number 10 going forwards. That was in the Times, the report of the tour of Britain. That's pretty much it for today. You're up to date. Don't forget you can find all the latest on what we're doing here on Core Politics on our Facebook page and Twitter right here. It's nearly parliamentary recess. We nearly break up for the summer, but there's still a lot to get through today. So check out our news feeds, and also check out my personal news feed. I'll be tweeting a lot about what's going on in Westminster today, and have a chat. Give me a tweet if you want to discuss what I've covered today or anything that you're interested in as well. From me and all the team here at Core London, have a fantastic Thursday. See you tomorrow, right about 9 o'clock.